the former Harvard president, as well as some other college presidents, had to go all the way down to Congress to talk about from the river to the sea, and which has been stated in media, especially as an anti-Semitic trope. So when you have these college presidents, exactly, when you have these college presidents saying, we can't say that this is anti-Semitic and we can't suspend and expel students for saying this because it's not an example of what we understand to be anti-Semitism. Yeah. You know, they automatically, it succeeded. They got some of these women to resign and they fired Ms. Gay. And my thing is that
the fact that that a slogan causes more of a stir than a genocide shows how fragile Zionism is. Mm-hmm. You're more upset about a slogan. You guys are killing our people by the thousands. Mm-hmm. And you want us to feel bad for you because you were saying a slogan you don't like and it hurts your feelings. Shut the fuck up. You guys are literally obliterating Palestinians off the face of the planet, and you want people to feel bad because we're saying a phrase you don't like? Mm-hmm. Stop it. Mm-hmm. Stop it.
Okay, so I want to let y'all know that we got our first TikTok violation.
Oh shit.
You know, the posts that we did about like black and brown are often linked together, but be honest, can multicultural coalition exist? And it's that clip with that brown man.
Oh, when he was like, you know, like black people.
Yeah.
Or that black man.
So they said you've received a warning for your first violation and the next violation will result in a strike. Apparently it's hate speech.
That's really rough because it's like, actually what we're doing is like addressing the hate speech in the video, not like condoning it and saying like we agree, but look at what people say.
Right.
Look at the anti-black things people say.
I think like this is a certain level of censorship that's really scary right now. And there is an article that I added to the document. Are social media giants censoring pro-Palestinian voices amid Israel's war? And I feel like, no shade, like I kind of feel like anything that you do gets wrapped up into like these policies that they've created over the last couple of months to make sure that people aren't, you know, speaking directly to race or social issues or politics.
Even the definition, Meta's definition of what qualifies as political content, anything that involves a social group. So
isn't it social media?
What? It's given very welcome to America. And I'm really interested to see like what the panelists have to say about their own experience with censorship. People like Sean King like lost his Instagram account. There are tons of other people, Palestinian voices who have lost their
journalists,
account. Black voices,
just
journalists,
what's going on.
People who are on the ground in Palestine, in Gaza, also got censored. So this is some really, really crazy shit. We can't depend on Instagram. We can't depend on Facebook. We can't depend on TikTok or any of these social media platforms to be able to actually get people's opinions across, because it's like, as terrible and a petri dish like the internet can be, having people on the ground in Gaza actually talking about what's happening and showcases what's happening is priceless. Mm-hmm. And it has educated so many people. And I feel like this is an attack on education. It's an attack on people's ability to express themselves, the First Amendment and all of these things. This is like a real watershed moment for certain freedoms that we were allowed to have when it comes to the internet and the digital space. I think it's just the beginning. Nina has been an outspoken voice. Well, she was like one of the first people who I actually heard on Godfrey's podcast, actually going in and debating with somebody who was from Israel, and it got really, really intense. It was really, really crazy. They were so brave to have that conversation. Right. All of these months later, things have really changed, right? We've spoken about ceasefire. Biden went from talking about we'll support Israel, you know, without prejudice, or without any limitations on our support for them. And now you see that it's beginning to change. So I'm interested to hear what Nina has to say about like how much things have changed. Does it even matter?
They're acting as if it's like a foreign entity invading the United States and like starting a war. It's like, it's college students, just intense.
Exactly.
It's not that deep.
I think like it's beautiful to see that there's a coalition of people that are out there right now. And sort of like going back to this piece about multicultural coalition, but honing in on the Jewish piece. Talk to me about your experience. I'm wondering, like, growing up and, you know, understanding probably better than the rest of us what Zionism is. Now that there is this push to conflate Zionism and Judaism, How do you navigate that as a Palestinian person? Because I would imagine, in my conversations anyway with Jewish people, we have completely unpacked the fact that Jewish people are not a monolith. Jewish people are dynamic and they're different.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering for you, how has it been easy for you to navigate these conversations as far as Judaism is concerned and Zionism is concerned?
I honestly feel bad for Jewish people because the reason why there's a lot of anti-Semitic hates after October 7th is because of the Zionists being like, we're all the same. That's why the world is turning on Jewish people, because of the Zionists, because there's so many Jews like Jonathan Randall and millions upon millions of other Jews who go to the protests, who speak out, who are like, we're not Zionists, not in our name. We support a ceasefire. We support we support Palestinian liberation. So when you have Zionists being like, no, we're all the same, they're actually harming themselves because that's why the world hates y'all. Like, you know?
Yeah. It's scary.
So I feel bad. I feel bad for Jews who are like, I don't support this, because they kind of get mixed in with the Zionists and being people not liking them. Before October 7th, apparently I have a bunch of Jewish friends. My manager was a Jewish guy. I love him to like. I've never been anti-Jewish, but since October 7th, a few Jewish people in my circle turned on me.
Oh, wow.
And was like, well, we think you're anti-Semitic. And I was like, well, no, I've never, ever in my whole life, even as a joke, said anything anti-Jewish. I make jokes about Zionists, and I make jokes about like Michael Rappaport, who's a raging piece of dog shit.
All right, I'm in Jerusalem at the Machane Yehuda market. I'm looking for the apartheid. Okay, in Israel, I am looking for the apartheid. I just asked all these people, not one person is able to tell me where the apartheid is. So I'm asking you on this platform, since you're so smart, to tell me where I can go to actually witness the apartheid. You guys know where the apartheid is? No idea. No one knows where the apartheid is, but I'm sure you can tell me. Let me know where the apartheid in Israel is.
Yes, he is.
I've never said anything about the Jewish religion. I've never said anything about the Jewish faith or the culture. Like, so I feel like they were projecting, and they actually pulled away from me. And I was like, well, if you don't want to be my friend because I'm against killing innocent Palestinians, then I kind of don't want to be your friend either. So they kind of told on themselves, you know?
And there's a lot of cancellation going on.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that we've observed. When it comes to anti-Blackness, what, who, when, where, you can come back, you can have a hit show.
Yeah.
If you talk about, call Islam people or people who are Arab terrorists, you can come back, have it, who cares? No one talks about Islamophobia like that. But the moment you say something about Jewish people in particular, when you're painted as an anti-Semite, baby, it's like the world completely stops.
I had been with two women in my agency who were Jewish for 10 years, and there had never been a problem. But when I started to go to marches and speaking out, I got a phone call that just said, I'm a Zionist and I can't represent you. And I was shocked because, you know, at the demonstrations, more than half the people are Jewish. Being Jewish doesn't mean you're a Zionist. I was stunned because they knew who I was. I've been politically active since I came to New York and since I was in the business before that, even when I was in school. But at the same time, I understood that as a Zionist, her belief system saw me now as a threat and a betrayal. Or the bad thing was they went to Page 6, which is a very sleazy newspaper, The Post, and anonymously put this whole kind of really dramatic story about me being anti-Semitic.
And that's one of the things when we talk about power that it's been hard to talk about because people won't be honest about it.
But that's why it's so important to speak out. That's why it's so important for like someone like DJ Khaled because the more you speak out about it, the less it's going to be vilified. The more everyone's like, yo, this is wrong, it becomes more mainstream to talk out and speak out against Israel and speak out against Zionism. That's why it's so important that social media exists. I think this is probably this and the Black Lives Matter and a few other times where social media really helped
for sure
change the way society thinks. It needs to be okay to be like genocide is wrong.
Yeah, duh.
We're in 2024. It should be okay that we're like, hey, we shouldn't let the Holocaust Part 2 happen.
But you were talking about like people who were turning their backs on you. We were talking about fear a lot when black people are fearful of talking about this shit because we'll lose opportunities, my former agents definitely jump ship, no email return, unfollowed on all of the social media platforms. And you're in the entertainment space as a comedian.
Yeah.
Did you ever wonder or were frightened about what would happen to your career?
Yeah.
Being this vocal.
I hate to be like, I don't give a fuck and fuck that. Of course I thought about it. Of course I was like, oh shit, like I could lose my manager. I could lose I could lose like clubs not booking me. There's a West Side Comedy Club is never gonna book me again. Fuck that place. You know, did it bother me? Yeah, it bothered me. Do I think about missed opportunities? Yeah, I recently auditioned for a commercial for Selena Gomez and Sephora, and I got 2 callbacks, and the agents literally were like, you got it. Like they gave me like dates and all that. They look, oh, what's your Instagram?
Oh God.
I sent them my Instagram and I got cut.
Yeah.
Hours later, you're gonna tell me that wasn't because of my pro-Palestine stance? Of course it was. I was more upset because it was a fat check that I missed out on. But I was like, you know, it comes with the territory. I'm a Palestinian, and in public, I'm not going to shy away from speaking out against the injustices my people are facing. I have to. It's an obligation.
Yeah.
Does this suck that I'm going to lose money in the future because of this? Probably. Is it going to make me stop? No, because I can't be a coward about it. I can't. And it's not like I have this massive platform. I don't. But the little bit that I do have and the few minds that I am able to change, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that we worry about, we talk about this often on the production side, is activism and capitalism. You know, this space of them being, it's like, it's so hard to stack these things up and put them next to each other because capitalism is extremely antagonistic to progress and to activists in particular. There's this like running joke that activists are supposed to be poor and starving all the time because the moment that you speak truth to power, you're literally trading in your opportunities for that.
Yeah.
And so when I'm watching all of this stuff play out, like again, I've been saying like black folks have been like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just trying to get by. Like I'm just trying to eat.
Yeah.
And we are so disenfranchised that to say something is a lot of bravery that's involved. And so and even for like people who we've spoken to who are Jewish, who are anti-Zionist, have been called all sorts of names.
Ooh, they get called self-hating Jews and they're fake and they're this, and it's just so crazy.
Yeah, and so a lot of Jewish people are also afraid to speak out. But what I have seen is that a lot more Jewish people, like I said, I've seen so many Jewish people come up and say, listen, being Jewish is completely different than being a Zionist, and we need to have that.
It's basically being like, I'm a Christian and I'm a KKK member.
That's how you would liken being a Zionist.
Yeah, like a KKK member, you could believe in Jesus and be a Christian and all that stuff, but there's a lot of Christians who are like, I'm not racist and I believe that black people should prosper and I don't want to set their houses on fire and kill their kids. So it's like, sure, are the KKK members Christian? Yes, but that doesn't define Christianity.
Absolutely.
So it's like Zionists who are racist and hate Palestinians. Sure, they're Jewish, but not all Jews are Zionists.
Exactly. And it's important because you mentioned it before. It puts folks in danger.
Yeah. That's
really,
why there's
really
anti-Semitic attacks, because you guys are convincing the public that all Jews are Zionists.
And that's not true.
No, not even a little bit. There's Jews in Tel Aviv protesting against Netanyahu.
Exactly.
I mean, my friend Noam, she lives in Israel and she's a comedian as well. And I've done shows with her in Palestine before. And she's the most anti-Zionist Jew there is, and she's like, sometimes I get scared because the government has gone to her house and like, you can't.
Shit.
Yeah, it's scary for her too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's sad. It's sad that we live in a world where you're trying to be a decent person and you can't because you're scared.
Yeah, and speaking
like, what kind of dystopian bullshit is
it's
this? This is why the
crazy.
aliens haven't came to save us, because like, we don't want that ratchet fucking.
I mean,
Earth is ghetto.
I think some aliens are actually circling right now, counting down. I'm not gonna lie.
Earth is ratchet. Like aliens don't want to deal with us. It's you have to be scared to be a decent individual.
Yeah, it's really, really scary. I think like the college kids are a good example of this, and I wanted to talk to you about this too because the former Harvard president, as well as some other college presidents, had to go all the way down to Congress to talk about from the river to the sea, and which has been stated in media, especially as an anti-Semitic trope.
Let me ask you this. Will admissions offers be rescinded or any disciplinary action be taken against students or applicants who say from the river to the sea or Intifada advocating for the murder of Jews?
As I've said, that type of hateful, reckless, offensive speech is personally abhorrent to me.
Today that no action will be taken. What action will be taken?
When speech crosses into conduct that violates our policies, including policies against bullying, harassment, or intimidation, we take action.
Now, when you have these college students chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
That does not mean you want to kill every Jew that lives from the river to the sea. And if you're using that as an excuse, stop it. You sound stupid and goofy.
Right.
And it's just propaganda.
This is something that I find to be a talking point. Every time that I turn on the TV, and I say, turn off the TV. A lot of the very, very kind of like state-sanctioned news stations, which I think a lot of them are acting as, have been or sort of like perpetuating this narrative that this is an anti-Semitic trope. What does it mean? Do you know what it means? Like, what does it literally mean?
It literally just means that we want the whole area of Palestine to be free. Because, you know, right now we have a little tiny area in the West Bank. And we have a tiny area in Gaza that's been flattened.
Yeah.
And everyone's a refugee now. And like, it's like we just want our land back. We just want our country back. We just want freedom. We just want freedom to move within the region. Like, it's not a big ask.
And it's not hard to understand.
It's not a major ask.
So what do you think it is about this particular phrase that have especially Zionists?
Because Zionists are so scared of Palestinian liberation because they know that they can't put their knees on their necks anymore. So it's like, if Palestinians are free, Israelis can't prosper like they have been. They can't, like if Palestinians are free and they're able to vote, we're a majority, we're gonna outvote them. Like they know that if once Palestinians are free, they can't have the power that they have to mistreat us anymore. And they're like, oh shit, we've been treating these people like assholes for 75 years. They're gonna retaliate. They know that. It's like, well,
sounds so familiar.
Sounds very familiar, kind of like Jim Crow laws. You're like, well, oh, they're free now. We should just try to put them all in jail because they're gonna overpower us. You know, it's history repeating itself in a different form.
Those are one of the other things that I've recognized.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we say, like, I mean, I know a lot of people have sort of taken defund the police and things like that, and they've made it into something completely different than what it was intended to mean. So automatically I'm asking this question, well, like, what's wrong with this phrase? So when you have these college presidents, exactly, when you have these college presidents saying, we can't say that this is anti-Semitic and we can't suspend and expel students for saying this because it's not an example of what we understand to be anti-Semitism. Yeah. You know, they automatically, it succeeded. They got some of these women to resign and they fired Ms. Gay. And my thing is that
the fact that that a slogan causes more of a stir than a genocide shows how fragile Zionism is. You're more upset about a slogan. You guys are killing our people by the thousands. And you want us to feel bad for you because you were saying a slogan you don't like and it hurts your feelings. Shut the fuck up. You guys are literally obliterating Palestinians off the face of the planet and you want people to feel bad because we're saying a phrase you don't like? Stop it. Stop it. They're addicted to outrage. They love to be outraged. They love for people to feel bad for them. It's insanity. It's the most victim mentality I've ever seen. It's like, it's kind of psychotic. It's pathetic.
It's a little terrifying. I want to ask you this because I think this is an important part. There's an election coming up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, especially again in the media, are saying, are you willing to have a dictator in office? Do you want to live in a fascist state? And I think they're putting the onus on Palestinians, and now they're putting the onus on college students and subsequently black folks to make sure that we vote properly. Because you see, like in Michigan, where a lot of people in the Arab community withheld their vote and wrote in the ballot and did not give their votes away to Joe Biden, sending the message that we need to talk, we want to unpack this, and you don't have our votes. You're not guaranteed our votes. And I'm wondering for you, have you given any thought about this dynamic, about the future of America and what's going to happen when the person who's now in office, the incumbent president, is the one who is allowing this to happen or encouraging this to happen, or certainly sending a lot of money and weapons to Israel to continue this genocide?
I have weird views about voting because I think that the president of the United States doesn't have as much power as people think they do, and it's more about Congress and all that kind of stuff. So I think the man or potential woman in office is kind of just a talking head. Regardless of who's the president, I don't think America's ever going to stop funding this genocide. I don't think America's ever going to stop giving Israel money. I mean, if you look at it just during COVID, if you they gave Israel more money than we got stimulus money. Like Israelis got stimulus checks from our tax dollars.
That's crazy.
And per Israeli citizen got more money than we did. And that's our own tax money. I don't think that's ever gonna change. And whenever Americans say, oh, it's not, who cares? Like, look at the homeless people in LA. Look at the homeless people in New York. Look at our debt, our student debt, our medical debt. Like, we need all the coins we can get, can have. Like, we shouldn't be giving Israel all this money, but I don't think whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Bernie Sanders, whether it's Kamala Harris, I don't think Israel is ever going to stop being our ally, sadly. Unless there's some crazy global World War III type bullshit, which I don't think is too far from
I was about
imagining.
to say, I mean,
I don't think it matters whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden. America's kind of always on the wrong side of history.
Yeah.
Always. America's always the bad guy.
When we were recording the group conversation, remember the one on the 14th, one of our cameramen did not come because the night before, Iran shot at Israel and sent all of those missiles across. I think Hezbollah sent some missiles across, and he was like, "I am not coming because I don't know what the fuck is going on." And we're in New York, right? He was shook. He was shook. But the point that I'm bringing that up to say is that I think that it is a real fear that people have that we are heading towards World War III. Why? Because we are engaging in a conflict that is forcing other people to get involved with the conflict because it's not being tempered down. We're in fact encouraging Israel to continue their genocide because we're supplying with them with weapons. Have you I'm just curious, have you given thought to this World War III shit? Like,
yeah, I'm ready for the rapture to come. I'm ready for bunkers. I'm ready for a zombie apocalypse. I'm ready for aliens to save us. I mean, it's just the world is crazy that we live in 2024 and this shit is still happening. I think if Israel were to just stop, there would be peace in the region, and if Palestinians were to stop, there would be no Palestine. So it's kind of like, I think the aggressors need to take a step back for a little while, you know?
This is a hard thing to say. This is a hard thing, but what I recognize, just as a spiritual being, is that out of gross tragedy comes a lot of liberation, a lot of open minds, right? Like after a lot of world wars.
Freedom is usually bloody.
I mean, so I'm saying that to say that, like, from the attack on October 7th, which is a sad situation, we are now at this point where people are raising their voices on behalf of Palestinians. And how else do we get to that point if we did not have this atrocity? So I'm interested to see, especially like people who are watching this, about like, how do you as a occupied territory, as a oppressed people, get to a place where you are able to recognize your own liberation and freedom without fighting for your shit? And I mentioned this because of rioting, which is the voice of the voiceless.
How did how did slavery end?
I mean, there were tons of slave revolts. Slaves cut the necks of their masters. But you know what? If you say this, white people will this is what we've seen. White people villainize this type of chatter, this type of talk about actually being violent, about actually causing a ruckus, because even
you wouldn't have to be violent if you weren't being oppressed. You got to go to the root of the problem.
I mean, that's the point.
You got to find the context of the situation.
Absolutely.
There's so much nuance.
Even the protesters now, we have no problem with protesters as long as it's peaceful, as long as you're not disrupting students, as long as nothing is violent.
But what you guys are supporting is disrupting Palestinian lives.
That part.
So it's like, well...
That part. Queen, I have you in the room. I need to know if you have a question. So let me just give you a little bit of tea about Queen while she thinks about this. So Queen has a podcast called Tea with Queen and Jay. And she's a womanist race nerd. They talk about all the things. And so I didn't get you two together, but I have you in the same room. So I have to ask, do you have anything that you'd like to ask Nina? Because I really value Queen's opinion. And I think, like, you know, the opportunity that we have now to have these conversations with each other are so important. I didn't want you to leave the room without having any question that you...
I have a question. I think I have a comment.
I know this is very untraditional, but it's how we do shit.
My comment is, I guess I'm talking about the relations between Black Muslims and Arab Muslims. I'm a Black Muslim person.
Yes.
It's really difficult being a double marginalized person and like fully believing that coalition, like to be honest, that coalition between Black Muslims and Arab Muslims can be a thing. And of course I'm hopeful for that, but I think because of the layers of marginalization as a Black Muslim, it is really difficult for us to see that. And I want Arab Muslims to know that it is really difficult for Black Muslims to even foresee a coalition with with Arab Muslims because of the double marginalization that we experience as being a Black person, as being a Muslim person. And like, so when I see, and I'm trying to say this like with care, but like when I hear folks being like, oh, I get it, Black people, me as a Black person, I've always got it. I've always gotten your struggle.
Yeah.
I've always understood that stuff. So when I hear Arab people say, oh, I get it, it hurts.
Yeah.
Because I've always gotten it. I've always knew what that was. When stuff happens in the Middle East, I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
That's always been the case for me. So it's really disheartening to hear that it's not always been, oh my God, all this time, because it's always been like that for Black Muslims. So I just wanted to.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And you know, I think like that is the thing about what we were talking about this opportunity, because you know when you
It's opportunity to learn and grow.
Yes, it is. And it's hard and it's really nasty. And there's nothing really, if I'm being honest, there's nothing beautiful about it, because anybody can say anything. You know, you can say, oh my God, you know, we get it, we 100% understand it, and then it's like, well, what happens next? And I think like that is why we wanted to do this conversation, because it's like we understand this moment. We saw it with George Floyd very shortly ago, but we need to move into the next step.
Yeah.
And so I think like, you know, having you in the room with Queen is like a dream come true for me. And I, you know, it was scheduling that we couldn't get you together, but I really appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying too about the fact that you finally get it. And I know like it's,
I get it.
yeah, but it's hurt, but it's hurtful, and I get that too, because I put something up on Threads the other day, was when they were throwing those, when the white woman, the professor, got like pinned on the floor because she was protecting those students. I was like, do y'all understand what defund the police means? Like, do you actually understand what Black people have been saying? And it's a part of the journey, I think, where we've said this before as Black people. Today it's us, but it'll be you tomorrow.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, this is how empathy works sometimes. Empathy has to work where you have to have the knee on your neck to understand what that's like, because you can't possibly fathom it.
I think it's a lot of also ignorance, which is not an excuse, especially with smartphones nowadays. But even like, I would fight with like, argue with like cousins of mine, and I'd be like, do you know like why cops were even invented to begin with? And they're like, to protect. And I was like, no, they were hired, they were made to collect runaway slaves. And they were like, oh, we didn't know that. And you're like, you gotta like, it's a lot of just like misinformation out there and ignorance, which again is not an excuse. Yeah. But like you said, I think this is a time for people to like really learn and grow.
Yeah, like lean into this shit again, because today, Palestinians, tomorrow it will be the next group, and you see what they do to these college kids. So please stay woke. So I want to give you the last word, just in terms of just like, if you could walk away from this, conversation, you're like, I cannot walk away without saying this specific thing. Is there anything that you have left to say? And I'm gonna just say this before you say that a lot of times when we are engaged in these kind of conversations about freedom and liberation, it's done in this idea that like we are not impacting the future with what's going on right now. Yeah. So we talk about Baldwin, we talk about Angela Davis, we talk about all of these people from the past, but they are the reason why we have liberation and certain freedoms today. Yeah. And depending on what we do today, that will dictate what happens tomorrow. Yeah. So we are present progressively impacting our future, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. And so today, you have the option to think about who you're going to be canonizing, what you're going to be spending your time on, who you decide to uplift in the social media space, and all of these things. I hope that people really understand that. And people really understand that from the Arab perspective. We don't know shit about Arab people. Yeah. Actually, let me speak for myself. I didn't know a lot about Arab people. And in this moment, I discovered so much. I learned about the Nakbas. I learned about a lot of things that I had no idea about. Yeah. That does make me feel a little bit closer and a little bit more connected with Palestinians. Same thing with Queen. I do have this question about anti-Blackness, but I see myself a little bit more through other people's struggle, as I mentioned, with even Jewish people. So I do want to recognize that this is an opportunity to actually change the tides of the future. Stay woke. But yeah, last word. Do you have anything that you would want to say?
Thank you to anyone who's supporting the Palestinian cause, especially the non-Arabs. I understand how hard and difficult it is, and it is sad to say you are very brave speaking out against injustice. I just hope Palestinians get to experience freedom during my lifetime.
Amen. Free Palestine. I want to thank you so much, Nina, for being here. Thank you for joining us, because she's busy, y'all, but she made the time for us. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
I encourage you all to follow her. We're going to put her handle right here and just follow everything she's doing. She's a stand-up comedian. She's also be beating people's asses. She is an amateur boxer. So follow her and support her.
Thank
and I
you.
appreciate you for giving us your voice
Thank you
today.
so much.
Okay, thank you. Make sure you guys like this shit, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
This outside agitator narrative has been used for years and years in this similar playbook of how to discredit movements.
Yes.
And saying like, oh, there are outside agitators that are actually the ones who are driving this movement. It's not actually CUNY students. It's not actually City College students. It's outside agitators. And there's none or very little evidence of that. So it's never felt unsafe. I think this narrative around safety is designed to sow fear and division. And I think it is true that there are many parts of this organizing that very genuinely make Jews uncomfortable. You know, I know a lot of Jews who are uncomfortable with the word intifada. I know a lot of Jews that are uncomfortable will often use the word Gaza instead of using the word Palestine, because they can't bring themselves to say the word Palestine because it feels like it delegitimizes the existence of the state of Israel. And so, or genocide even, you know, genocide is strange, you know, so inexplicably has become such a controversial word. So I think I totally understand and can see why some Jews that are kind of going through a political evolution in this moment are struggling with some of these ideas and phrases. And also being uncomfortable with the framing of a liberation movement is not the same thing as being unsafe.